Welcome back to BarcaBuzz TV. I was going to start this video talking about Lionel Messi winning the World Cup, kind of some of that hangover from the World Cup and how joyous of a moment it was for all of us Barca fans to see Messi finally lift the cup, even though he's at PSG. I was going to talk about, would we see some of the same developments that we saw, post-Clasico in late October, early November, where we saw, Frenkie De Jong deployed more as a pivot. We saw Alba and Balde start on the left and right side. And then I just get dropped in 5 a.m. New Year's Eve to a Lahoz Disaster class. I mean, just one of the worst performances you could ever imagine. Totally ruined the game. But a lot of the fault here has to go on Barca, right? We only scored one goal from Marcus Alonso. We had ineffective play from Raphinha and Ansu Fati on the wings. Players like Pedri didn't look up to their normal self. And so we're shaking off some of the cobwebs that come with an international break. But just again, felt like a bit of a toothless attack from Barca. And, you really sit back and you start to wonder, as we now are level on points with Real Madrid. And, we don't have Champions League football. We're only in the Europa League. We're looking to win this La Liga title after a few years here without it. And I just wonder who's going to score goals for Barca, right? That is the problem I keep seeing, because Lewandowski, as great as he is, as many goals as he's scored this season, it's just if he's missing an attempt like he misses in the 88th minute today against Espanyol, I don't know who else is going to make up those games, right, where Lewandowski isn't at his top form, where he's not as clinical as we're used to seeing. Today Raphinha tried a few attempts on goal overall with Barca, and with some Brazil in the World Cup I saw. Raphinha is oftentimes just trying to cut in from that right side and then score some sort of curler, and it just hasn't been going in for him like all season, I would say. And then Ansu Fati didn't look up to his best. He's just lacking almost all aspects of his game. Now, I'm not someone who's going to get in here and say we need to bench Fati forever, only play Depay or Torres or Dembele on the left. I'm not going to say anything like that because I know Ansu needs some more time here. But, I mean, you do wonder, because he has been back here for, like a quarter of a season based off where we are now. Things haven't been really rolling, right? Ever since that second game of the year against, I think, Real Sociedad, where he came on and had, I think, 2 assists and a goal. We really haven't seen that same output from Fati. And right now, with the team fighting for the La Liga title, we need, Fati, Ferran Torres, Dembele. We need these other forwards besides Lewandowski to come in and score some goals or get them from the midfield from, possibly Pedri, Gavi, Frenkie, etc. But right now, it just seems like our biggest problem is we're not having anyone score goals, right? We get Alonso scoring that header off of a corner where Lewandowski kind of puts it to the far post, then Christensen gets it in, and Alonso converts, and Marcus Alonso overall had a good game, but he's not going to be a consistent goal scorer, obviously. And so one of the things we really need to see here as we get back into the season, we get back into rhythm, we get back into full force of this La Liga battle, and for the Europa League as well, is who's going to actually put balls in the back of the net when Lewandowski isn't there. And I'm not exactly sure what the answer is going to be. I just, I know that we need to see Ferran Torres, Raphinha, and Dembele and Ansu Fati score some more goals. But acknowledging the issues with the Barca side, Lahoz was really just on one, right? After an Argentina-Netherlands game in the World Cup where he gave out, I believe, the most yellow cards, somewhere around like 16 ever in the World Cup history. He, again, just goes crazy, right? Alonso gives away the penalty, clips someone on the back of the boot in the box. Okay, that's given. Then he gives Jordi Alba a yellow card, but a second yellow card, doesn't immediately give him a red, because I don't know if Lahoz or Alba knew he was on a yellow at that point. A few minutes later gives, Ferran Torres a yellow for diving, which was, not the best look from Ferran Torres. And then he gives 2 reds to Espanyol. He does a VAR review on the second red, which was a leg basically that, grazes Lewandowski's head as he's on the floor. He takes away the red, but he doesn't even give a yellow, which would have been a second yellow and a red card. And so it was just, one of those performances where the tried and true message of Lahoz always applies, right? He is the guy who wants the game to always be about him, and he's succeeded in his last 2 games. And I really think, as much as there can be a conspiracy sometimes about Florentino and the La Liga refs and how Barca get the short hand of the stick, come on, having Lahoz, after that Argentina game, especially Barcelona derby, right? Barca and Espanyol was just really crazy. But let's get into the lineup. Let's talk about what Xavi had out here for the team because, one of the biggest and best things about coming back to club football is Barca are finally 100%, right? We have Araujo finally back from injury. Thankfully, he didn't risk it at all with Uruguay in the World Cup. We have Kounde back, although he has been back, but we haven't seen the Araujo-Kounde pair really healthy for most of the season. And Xavi takes a lineup that is a bit surprising, although with Dembele and Kounde just playing in the World Cup final, with possibly Busquets, with players just coming back from the World Cup. I wasn't sure exactly who he was going to start, so he puts Ter Stegen in the back. Then he has Sergio Roberto, Christensen, Alonso, and Jordi Alba as the back four. Gavi, Frenkie, Pedri in the midfield, and then Raphinha, Lewandowski, Fati up front. So I know there were a lot of people all over Twitter and Instagram and social media kind of complaining about this slow back line of, Alonso, Christensen, Roberto, and Alba. And, so am I, right? We have all kind of have those bad thoughts about seeing Sergio Roberto and Jordi Alba on the left and right flank here. But, the lineup overall looked decent. I think the big thing about the lineup that I was happy with was, again, seeing Busquets not start this game, right? Ever since the Clasico, the Inter Milan games, the Bayern Munich games in the Champions League, we've really just been trying to push this narrative, I think, as fans, that it's time to phase out Busquets, right? It's no longer time for him to be the one who always starts these big games. And so, we had seen in the last few weeks Frenkie De Jong get more time as the pivot. And again, Xavi gives him that vote of confidence first game back from the international break. And so I was happy to see that because I really do think we need to give, as we were talking about Ansu Fati, more time to play. We need to see if this Pedri, Frenkie, and Gavi midfield can really work together and be our starting midfield in these big games that come up for this season, because we've seen too many times, right? When we play teams like Espanyol or Valladolid or other teams that are in the bottom 8 to 20 in La Liga, Sergio Busquets can still play. Sergio Roberto can still play. Jordi Alba can still play. The problem we've been having for years, though, is that once we move on from these lower La Liga teams and we start playing, the top four in La Liga, we start playing in, Frankfurt in the Europa League or the Champions League against Bayern and Inter Milan, we see that these slower, older players can't keep up, right? We get the opposition who let us have the ball, they hit us on a counterattack, and then, Sergio Busquets, Alba, PK, the old guard, as you will, they're just not able to defend on the counter. And so I am happy to see some changes being made by Xavi. I think we need to give him a bit more time as, we get back from international break. Now Xavi has all of the tools at his disposal, right? He can call on any and all of our players. And even today, right, without Araujo, I think Eric Garcia picked up a little lesion. He doesn't exactly have everyone fully fit and ready, but as we get into the second, third, and fourth game of this post-World Cup season, we're going to start to see, okay, what can Xavi again create a gala 11, right, his best 11 to play in these big matches, and can we see a continued use of the players to get some rhythm, right? Because if you think about like kind of the meta of the season so far, for a lot of it, Busquets was in the midfield. We also had Dembele on the left wing and Raphinha on the right, sometimes switched off. And, I think what the first half of the season taught us is that those two wingers together don't really provide enough output. Right, and we all know the case. Dembele and Raphinha are both better on the right side. So we've seen Ferran Torres, we've seen Ansu Fati. We were going to see Memphis Depay play on that left side. And so really, I just want to see Xavi kind of build in his best 11 and see what he can really do. Because now there are no more injuries, right? There was some of those like Inter Milan game where we thought, okay, if Araujo was in, we would have had a lot better chance. The Clasico, we thought, again, if Araujo's there, we have a better chance. But now everything is here on the table, and we really need to see Barca start to perform better. This game against Espanyol, we really should have finished it in the first 70 minutes, right? The fact that it was 1-0 and we weren't able to score a second really does not look too good on us, because this game was there for the taking. And as much as we want to complain about Lahoz, as much as we want to be not happy with the fact that there was a red card given to us that we thought was unfair, that there was, a red card on the Espanyol side that wasn't given. Barca really need to take control of the game and win, right? We no longer can just sit back and we can no longer blame injuries for our performances. And if you take away a few good things from this game, I think overall Frenkie De Jong did a good job in the middle. I think the midfield, it's a little bit of a situation where I feel like the midfield isn't being properly utilized. Right now, I see a lot from Xavi's side that the midfield is really facilitating the ball to the wings, who are supposed to, wingers who are supposed to create offense and supposed to, cut inside or, stay on the touchline and deliver a cross into Lewandowski. But because our wingers aren't effective right now, the fact that our midfield is basically a conduit to get the ball out wide means that they're being ineffective as well, right? And for Xavi, a coach and a player who had so much experience building through the middle, I do want to see us, be a little bit more dynamic here, especially when Raphinha is not having his day, Dembele is not having his day, Ansu Fati is not having his day. We need Pedri and Gavi and the fullbacks like Balde and Alba who are on the wings to make overlapping runs and to help try and get us some passing lanes. Overall, the biggest problem I saw in that first 70 minutes where I think we could have put away the game is we were way too stagnant. Right, there were too many people, especially when we went up 1-0, who were kind of standing around. No one was making runs to give an outlet for Gavi or Pedri to pass the ball to. There was just way too much ball watching and not a lot of proactive runs from the wingers. And then, the problem with Lewandowski is he is a great striker. And we've seen this season he does have some very good build-up play, and he's connected well with, Ansu Fati at times and with Pedri at times. But if we're not giving him service in the box, there's not much he can do, right, to just win a game. He's not, Messi, for example, even as great as Lewandowski is, he's just not the guy who's going to, really pull a goal out of nothing multiple times in the season. And so we really need to see either our midfielders, fullbacks, or our wingers provide just more space to create opportunities to get the ball into the box for Lewandowski to put it away. Raphinha, I criticized earlier talking about how he didn't have a lot of final output, which is true. But at the same time, I think Raphinha was probably our best attacker today. And I'm just hoping he can somehow find his confidence, right? The World Cup, I was hoping if Brazil did go far, was going to be the place and the time for Raphinha to kind of build up his confidence, his goal-scoring boots, get some few assists on the board, and really help catapult that progress into this second half of the Barca season. Unfortunately, we haven't seen it yet. Dembele as well, right, had, one of the worst World Cup final performances ever with that foul on Di Maria and then, being subbed off before halftime. He thankfully didn't look too dejected today. I thought he was, trying to give it his all, but he was Dembele, right, at times making extremely magical runs, creating space, taking on people one-on-one, which we don't see from Raphinha, Ferran, Depay, or Fati very often. And then, at other times he'd make the wrong decision. He would try and take a shot and would just sky it, not even on goal. He would try and do some assists that skied in the box too. So, we have the players here to perform much better than we are. It just doesn't feel like everyone's performing at 100% of their level. And that goes both on the coach and on the players, right? Utilizing them correctly and then their actual execution of the game. And then besides that, I was happy to see, I thought Alonso, besides the penalty, was actually playing really well before that moment. I thought Christensen as well. I'm always happy to see him. Hopefully he'll get some more run of play here because he's been probably, one of the most impressive performers we've had who we just got this summer. So that's all I got here, folks. I mean, not what we wanted, right? We're now tied on points with Real Madrid. Lewandowski's 3-match ban is coming up somewhere here. We don't exactly know what the status is going to be. There was a lot of hubbub about Espanyol not coming to the game, but they were there. They, didn't play very well. They got a penalty and they drew us 1-1, and that's really on Barca and on Lahoz. So let me know in the comments what you guys thought. Who was your favorite player? Thank you so much. We'll see you later.